It's all right. So as soon as you enter, you write your name in the chat session so that we will have a record of those who attended. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
All right. Once again, I want to say good evening to everyone. This is the first time I'm going to have, the first contact I'm going to have with you. My name is Dr. Emery Bole, EI. I will be taking you on EVS 827, the part A aspect of it, environmental monitoring. You know, environmental monitoring is divided into two parts, section A and section B. So I will be handling section A aspect of the environmental monitoring, and another colleague will be handling section B. I don't know if you are seeing my slides.
You're on the cover page, sir.
So we are seeing the cover page.
I'm not seeing anything now.
So don't mind the error there. PGD is not PGD, it's MSc. I hope the people I have here are master's degree students.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
I will correct that. It's MSc in environmental standards. So 827, as you can see, is for masters, because all the master's courses start with 8. So this is environmental monitoring. This is our first week. And in this first week, we are going to take a general introduction to the course. We are going to take a general introduction to the course. This is my profile. It's not quite necessary now. You may take your time and look at my profile. Now, for this course and for this section, like I said, these are the course contents. We are going to take a general introduction, and in the course of this study, we will also look at principles and applications of environmental monitoring. We are going to look at environmental sampling methodology, sample preservation, processing, and generation of data. Of course, meaningful data, that is meaningful generation of information out of your meaningful data processing. We are going to look at analytical techniques for environmental monitoring. We will also look at criteria for selection of methods. What are the things you consider, the considerations before you select a particular environmental analytical method. Then we are going to look at analysis of air, water, soil, sediment, food and biological samples for inorganic and organic pollutants. So you see, we are going to cover a whole lot of environmental components. We will also look at data management and presentation. It is one thing to collect, sample, generate data. It is another thing to manage the data effectively and present it also in a format.
Let's say they go from even.
and present it in a format that even a layman can be able to understand what you're saying. So this is what we are going to cover generally in part B aspect of environmental monitoring. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir.
So at the end of this aspect, at the end of this section, students are expected to know the procedures to establish environmental monitoring. They should be able to choose the appropriate type of environmental monitoring in a given circumstance, both in terms of choice of sampling locations and measured parameters, as well as in terms of choice of medium. So that will give you your learning outcome. So I want to welcome all of you to EVS 827, and it is my hope and belief that at the end of this study, all of you will be very efficient environmental scientists. You will be able to go into the environment, pick up environmental samples, analyze them, and generate meaningful information. Once again, I welcome all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So, yes, I'm sure other people may have established or informed you about what we require of you. In the course of these lectures, maybe middle of the program, we will give you quiz in form of continuous assessment. We may give you tests to assess how you understand the courses we teach. And then at the end of it, we will give you examination. It is during the examination that we will have physical contact with you. I'll get to know you, you get to know me. But for now, we will be having our contacts online. Again, attendance is very, very vital, very, very crucial. The regulation says that for a student to qualify to write examination, you should be able to attend classes up to 70%. If you don't, you will not be qualified to write the examination. So I wish that you take your classes very seriously. So for this week, we are going to take a general introduction to environmental monitoring. So in this class, we are expected to look at key aspects of environmental monitoring, which covers air quality monitoring, water quality monitoring, soil quality monitoring. Of course, whenever you say environment, these are the three basic components of the environment: the air, the water, and the soil. But that doesn't mean that there are no other aspects of the environment that we monitor. But every other aspect of the environment we monitor belongs to these three classes of these three sections of the environment: the air, the water, and the soil. So we will also look at biodiversity monitoring, because biodiversity is an index of measuring how good the environment is or how bad the environment is. We will also look at climate monitoring, because what happens in the climate change has a way of affecting the transport and fate of or what you call the pollutants. And it is also a basic aspect, a very important aspect of air monitoring, the climate monitoring. We'll also look at noise and light pollution monitoring as a key aspect of environmental monitoring. We will have remote sensing, real-time monitoring, data analysis and modeling, policy and decision making. Okay, because every information you generate from environmental monitoring has somebody that it is useful to, decision makers, policy makers, government. They use the outcome of our research to determine what is done next in terms of policy implementation or allotment of resources, budget making, and so on and so forth. So the objectives of this study, one, is to provide a comprehensive understanding of environmental monitoring principles and techniques, to equip students with knowledge about the importance of environmental and sustainable resource management and environmental protection. The two major components of uses of environmental monitoring: sustainable resource management, to resources available. We know that resources are scarce, so they have to be managed in a sustainable manner, and then in such a way that the environment is not negatively affected. Also, to introduce various environmental parameters and their measurement methods. What are these parameters that we measure as indices, indicators of environmental degradation? What are the indicators of environmental degradation? When you monitor air, what are the indicators? What are the indices that you look out for that will tell you that, yes, the air quality is good or that the air quality is bad? What are the indicators that tell us that the soil quality is good or bad? The same way with water. So there are basic indicators that we monitor that gives us information about the condition of the environment. We're going to look at them one after the other. We are also going to highlight the role of data collection and analysis in guiding policy and decision making. We will also develop the ability, we will help you, what the outcome of this study will help you develop the ability to interpret monitoring data and predict environmental trends. So, the learning outcome. By the end of this lecture, it is expected that students will be able to explain the principles and significance of environmental monitoring, identify key environmental parameters and their respective monitoring techniques. You should be able to analyze environmental data to detect trends. When you look at the data you have generated and analyze it, you should be able to say, yes, the environment is under stress or is not under stress. You should be able to detect anomalies and also predict facts if the trend continues. You should be able to apply monitoring principles in real-world scenarios to address environmental challenges. The trending challenge, you should be able to know the parameters you monitor to be able to say, there is going to be the environment is in danger of global warming or not. You should be able to understand the usefulness of monitoring data in the development of policies and adaptive management strategies. So these are the benefits you are going to acquire at the end of this study. So, what is environmental monitoring? We hear environmental monitoring. What is this environmental monitoring? Environmental monitoring refers to the systematic process of, one, observing, assessing, and collecting data related to various environmental, so that you'll be able to do what? To, one, understand the state and health of ecosystems, the natural resources, and the overall environment. So you should be able to have very powerful way of observing what trends, of observing happenings in the environment, either by use of physical observation or making use of equipments or instruments for environmental monitoring. So the essence of this observation and assessment is for you to be able to understand the state and the health of the ecosystem, of the environment, and then look at the natural resources and the overall environment, how they are being used, how their uses affect the environment, and what could be done to ameliorate the negative impacts of these activities. Also, to help scientists, researchers, policymakers, and organizations to make informed decisions and take appropriate actions to mitigate negative impacts on the environment and human health. So you find out that environmental monitoring is a very useful scientific tool that helps both policymakers, both researchers, both students, organizations to take appropriate steps to make useful and meaningful decisions in order to take good care of our environment, either to ameliorate the negative impacts of human activities or to take steps to avoid it entirely. So this is what environmental monitoring is all about. It involves monitoring, observing, assessing, and collecting data from various components of the environment to be able to assess the condition of the ecosystem and then maybe provide solutions to negative situations. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, what are the key aspects of the environmental monitoring? Key aspects of environmental monitoring. Like I said, there are three basic sections of the environment, or three components of the environment: the air environment, the water environment, and the soil environment. Every other thing revolves around these three. So one of the key aspects of environmental monitoring is air quality monitoring. Air quality monitoring, very important aspect of environmental monitoring. You cannot monitor environment effectively without monitoring what happens in the air. Likewise, what happens in the water or what happens in the soil. So in air quality monitoring, we will look at these things in details as we proceed in subsequent lectures. But we are taking a general overview of what environmental monitoring is all about. So in air quality monitoring, it involves measuring levels of pollutants in air. Because as an environmentalist, what we are looking at is there anything that is happening in air that is outside the normal? Pollution of the air environment. So if you want to monitor air quality, you have to look out for the level of pollution or the level of pollutants in air. What are these major pollutants? We talk about particulate matter, particles that float in air. More especially, those ones we call particulate matter 2.5. PM2.5, and PM10. What we mean by PM2.5 is those particulate matter that can only pass through a pore size of 2.5 microns. So they are called PM2.5. Then we have those ones also that can pass through a pore size of 10 microns. Micrometer means 10 to the power minus 6 millimeter. Okay, so they are very tiny particles. These particles behave like air. They have a very long residence time in air. So they behave like air. These are the particles that even if you lock your windows and your doors very tightly, you will still, if you touch the surface of your furniture, you still find particulates. You still find dust. So these particulates are very important air quality parameters that are measured because they have health implications. They have implications on furniture and your household materials. Okay, they tarnish them. They can come in. They can pass through the nose, move to the cross the bronchi, and get to the lungs and cause very disturbing health conditions. So particulate matter, PM2, particularly PM2.5 and PM10 are monitored in air when you are monitoring air quality. We monitor ozone, we monitor sulfur dioxide, SO2, we monitor nitrogen dioxide, NO2, we monitor carbon monoxide, CO. These ones are referred to as criteria air pollutants. So in any routine air quality monitoring, these parameters are very, very important. They must be monitored. They must be measured and assessed. These are not the only air quality indices or parameters that are monitored. There are so many others, but these ones are the very important ones. PM2.5, PM10, ozone, sulfur dioxide, NO2, and carbon monoxide. Sometimes methane may be included because methane is fingered for global warming, greenhouse effect that it contributes. So, but in every routine air quality monitoring, you must not do without these parameters. Then for water quality monitoring, another component of the environment, the water environment. Water quality monitoring involves monitoring the quality of water bodies. It could be a river, it could be a lake, it could be the ocean, it could be groundwater, water that are found in the aquifers. So these are the different forms of water bodies that we monitor. The parameters that we look at include pH, we look at temperature, we look at turbidity, we look at dissolved oxygen, we look at nutrients, the NPKs, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Then we also look at heavy metals and pathogens that are present in water. Very important. pH is talking about hydrogen ion concentration in water. It measures the amount of protons that are available in water. These parameters have a way of affecting the behavior of other contaminants in the water body. When pH is low, it means that the water is acidic. When pH is low, I mean is from anything 5 down, is acidic. other water contaminants behave differently in acidic pH as compared to the way they behave in alkaline pH. From 7 point something and above, you're looking at alkaline situation. So pH, temperature, and as we progress, we will now look at these parameters one after the other and their implications in a water body. Turbidity is talking about the amount of light that penetrates across a water, and it gives us an indication of suspended particles in water. So they have a way of affecting aquatic life. How turbid water is has a way of affecting aquatic life. Then we talk about dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen is looking at how a water body can sustain life. If you have enough dissolved oxygen, it means that aquatic life can comfortably survive and thrive. But if dissolved oxygen depletes to a certain low level, it spells doom for aquatic life. Then nutrients. The presence of nutrients also can determine how plants that depend on these nutrients thrive in aquatic environment. And when plants thrive beyond expectation, it spells, it has implications. So I don't know if people have heard about eutrophication or algal bloom, a situation where you have overgrowth of plants in a water body. It has implications. So as we progress, we'll see the implications of all these things. But these are parameters that are very important in determining the condition of water environment. Also, you talk about the pathogens, disease-carrying organisms. Their presence in water has health implications both on humans and other organisms that depend on water for survival. So very important parameters that are monitored during water quality monitoring exercises. So we are just taking a general overview of key aspects of environmental monitoring. So we have air quality monitoring, we have water quality monitoring. Any questions so far? Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll continue. Now, another aspect of environmental monitoring deals with soil quality monitoring. Soil quality monitoring. Remember, we said there are three basic components of the environment: the air environment, the water environment, and the soil environment. So, the same way we monitor air quality, we monitor also water quality, and then we also monitor soil quality. So soil quality monitoring involves assessing soil health and fertility by measuring factors that I'm going to list out. When you say soil health is a bit different from what we call soil quality. Soil health is looking at how a soil environment is able to sustain life. For the ability for soil for plants to thrive in soil, for organisms to thrive in soil, the amount of organisms that help soil quality their presence in the soil is also an indicator of soil health, how healthy the soil is. Okay? Then soil fertility is looking at how the soil is able to provide the essential nutrients for plants or plant life in soil. So in measuring, we look at things like the soil pH, which is also a very important parameter in determining how healthy or how fertile soil could be. We look at the organic matter content, very important in quality and soil health. We look at nutrient levels. We look at the presence of contaminants in the soil. Contaminants such as heavy metals. Are there pesticides or herbicides that could spell doom for organisms that are in the soil? Or soil health or soil quality parameters that are measured in soil quality check or monitoring. So now, apart from air quality monitoring, water quality monitoring, and soil quality monitoring, we also have what we call biodiversity monitoring. Biodiversity monitoring is a very important aspect. It is a very important aspect of environmental monitoring. So it involves populations, tracking changes in species populations, their distribution, and behavior their behavior to understand the health of the ecosystem. You know, these organisms that you find in the environment, the increase in their population or decrease in their population is an indicator of ecosystem health. There are so many organisms that you used to see in the past, but over time you don't see them again because of things that are happening in the ecosystem. So these things are indicators to ecosystem health or environmental health. So sometimes people in the biological studies use this biodiversity monitoring as an indicator of environmental pollution. So it includes monitoring the plants, the animals, the insects, and other organisms to understand how the pattern, the distribution, and the way they thrive or they diminish. So it tells us about the environmental condition. So it's a very important aspect of environmental monitoring, biodiversity monitoring. Another one is climate monitoring. Very important aspect of environmental monitoring again. So, and climate monitoring involves collecting data on long-term climate trends. This includes collecting data concerning temperature changes, changes in precipitation, like rainfall changes or rainfall patterns, humidity, and then to study the climate change and its effects. Human activities in the environment can lead to climate change. So we monitor the climate to know the impact, the negative impact of anthropogenic activities on the environment. So very important aspect of environmental monitoring, climate monitoring. Then we also have noise and light pollution monitoring. This involves measuring and analyzing the levels of noise and the light pollution in urban and natural environments to understand their impacts on wildlife and human well-being. You will notice that As urbanization approaches, many organisms are negatively affected. There are organisms, there are animals, wildlife that do not thrive well in noisy environments. So the incoming of urbanization affects wildlife. It can cause habitat fragmentation. It can, deplete the number of organisms available. So noise and light pollution affects both wildlife and human well-being. So it is a very important aspect of environmental monitoring because all these things have impact on the life of human beings and other organisms in the environment. So it's a very important aspect of environmental monitoring. Then there is this one that is called remote sensing. This involves using satellite imagery and other remote sensing technologies to monitor large-scale environmental changes, such as deforestation, land use changes, and natural disasters. It is called remote because you monitor trends and environments using remote sensors without actually being present in the environment of occurrence where the environmental degradation is taking place. So you use remote sensors to monitor remote environments, remote areas, or isolated areas that are so difficult for human beings to large scale areas of the environment. We can use a remote sensor to monitor the rate of development in the whole of entire Imo State or Southeast from a spot, from one place. So you can monitor environmental changes from a particular spot using a particular equipment without actually traveling from one point to another. So it's a very important aspect of environmental monitoring. You must have seen situations where land use changes are monitored from the satellite locations, and you generate images that can be desertification situations and stuff like that. So remote sensing becomes very handy in situations like that. So it's a very important aspect of environmental monitoring. So we also have this one that is called real-time monitoring. This involves employing sensors and technology for continuous real-time monitoring. There are situations that you need real-time reporting, on-the-spot reporting, real-time monitoring of environmental parameters to be reporting steadily what is going on. This is especially useful for early detection of pollution events or a situation where you want to detect early occurrence of extreme weather situations. You see, in abroad, developed countries, before a cyclone could take place, it has been reported. Before a tornado could take place, it has been detected and reported. So these kind of things needs real-time reporting, real-time monitoring. So we do real-time monitoring to do early detection of extreme weather events, sudden changes, including onset of natural disasters and emergency situations, policymakers to take prompt and immediate decisions and actions. So that aspect is called real-time monitoring. Then there is also data analysis and modeling. Is a very important aspect of environmental monitoring. Data analysis and modeling. This involves collecting and analyzing large volumes of environmental data to create models and simulations that predict future trends and potential impacts. So you see situations where you collect data about what is happening today and use it to project into the future and say, if this is the trend of events today, and if things continue like that, this is what is going to be in the next 5 years. You can project into in the next 100 years. So it is extensively used in developed countries to predict into the future and begin to have plans. Governments that are very proactive, that have vision, will use this kind of environmental modeling data to predict into the future and make adequate plans for this generation and generations to come. So it's very important. So how does environmental monitoring help policy and decision making? I just mentioned one of it. If you are able to use what is happening today to project into the future, government should be able to make adequate provisions, adequate plans for the future, even projecting into centuries, into hundreds of years to come, and then make provisions. But I'm not sure such things happen in our country, Nigeria. We only think about what happened today, and then we make provisions for today. Tomorrow, nobody cares. But in places where people care for tomorrow, environmental monitoring becomes very handy, very important in making such projections. Any questions? Hello?
No question, sir.
Okay, you are following everything.
Yes, sir. We are following.
I will ask questions. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
ask questions. So. Okay. So, in form of summary for today's lecture, I don't want to drag you into 2 hours. We said that environmental monitoring is a systematic process that is essential for assessing the health of ecosystems. Look at the natural resources and then the broader environment. So environmental monitoring of the health of the ecosystem, the natural resources, more especially when it deals with sustainable management of natural resources, and then the broader environment. By measuring key parameters such as air, water, and soil quality, biodiversity, and climate conditions, it provides the data necessary for informed decision making, more especially for policymakers. Again, principles such as systematic data collection, baseline establishment, spatial and temporal coverage, and data quality assurance ensure accurate and actionable insights. So the data that we generate through environmental monitoring is very, very useful. It's very, very important. What we mean by baseline establishment is, there is something we do during environmental impact assessment. Before a project actually commences, you need to know what the situation is, what the environmental condition is like. so that by the time the project takes off, and then you do environmental monitoring again, you will be able to look at the two situations and know whether the environment has been negatively or positively impacted upon. So baseline establishment or baseline analysis tries to establish what the situation is prior to the commencement of a project. So it is through environmental monitoring that we establish baseline situations. It is through environmental monitoring that we also monitor the health and condition of the environment during a project or when a project is on. So very important tool, very important scientific tool in the establishment of situations or conditions of the ecosystem or the larger environment. So you cannot do without it. As an environmental scientist, this is a very important subject, very important tool that is employed by every environmental scientist in your environmental analysis and environmental studies. So don't play with this course. Then applications range from pollution control and conservation to climate change mitigation and policy development. From pollution control, because when you study the environment and notice that there is an impact, you should be able to propose control measures. What can we do to ameliorate the pollution scenario so that the environment can be sustainably managed or conserved? Advances in technology, such as remote sensing and real-time monitoring, has played a very vital role in enhancing the effectiveness of environmental monitoring. We just mentioned about remote sensing and the use of remote sensors in environmental monitoring or in studying a very large area of land that would have been very impossible for you to monitor ordinarily. And we also looked at the situation where real-time monitoring is very, very essential in situation, real-time, what you call extreme weather situations, weather events that need to be reported before ever they occur. So it helps policymakers, government, and environmental managers taking prompt actions, proactive actions to take care of our beautiful environment. So in conclusion, environmental monitoring plays a pivotal role in protecting and managing natural resources and our ecosystem. You should be able to tell me how. You should be able to tell me how environmental monitoring plays a vital role in protecting and managing natural resources and the ecosystem. So anybody who attended this class will to provide answer to this kind of question, it means that you did not understand what we said. The integration of environmental monitoring into policy making, resource management, and public awareness campaigns underscores its importance in addressing environmental challenges. So you should be able to tell me also how environmental monitoring aids policymakers in taking decisive actions, meaningful decisions in managing their environment. Also by adhering to sound principles and leveraging innovative technologies like the two I have mentioned earlier, environmental monitoring not only provides early warnings for potential crises, but also offers actionable solutions for sustainable development. Yes. The commitment to long-term monitoring and data transparency ensures that it remains a cornerstone of efforts to safeguard the environment for future generations. So environmental monitoring is a very important subject. It's a very important scientific tool in ensuring the safeguarding our environment. So we cannot do without it. So I don't know if there are any questions. Any questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I'm
Good
asking.
evening, sir. My name is.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, sir. My name is Lemcho Masuchi. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. But sir, I think I heard when you said environmental monitoring is essential prior to any project. For the commencement of any project, how to do environmental monitoring. But before now, all I know is environmental assessment. I want to get it clear if environmental monitoring is an aspect of environmental assessment, because I'm used to the environmental assessment that we conduct prior to any developmental project. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. First of all, what I said about monitoring the environment prior to a project, it was when I was talking about baseline, establishment of baseline condition, what the situation of the environment is prior to the commencement of a project. That's baseline analysis. But then, having said that, environmental monitoring is a part of environmental assessment. And they run hand in hand. It's not like they are two different things. Environmental monitoring, environmental assessment, they are the same thing. They are the same thing. The only difference is that monitoring is used here, and the other one, assessment, is used here. Monitoring is the same thing as assessment, is it not?
But when the times changes, I want to know whether there's a disparity.
Hello?
Actually, I was reasoning that way, but because of the time has just changed, I want to know whether there's a slight difference between the two.
Oh. So tell me.
Well, your lecture has been very, very fruitful and very, very educative. The similarity between these environmental monitoring and environmental assessments, they should be different. They are different, but having some similarities involved. Now, talking about environmental impact assessment, this is the process of assessing an environment pro to a propos. Yeah, I'm hearing you, sir.
She's not asking about environmental impact assessment. Is that what she meant?
She meant, yeah, no. That's what she meant now by environmental assessment.
No. She said environmental assessment and environmental monitoring. She didn't say impact assessment. Impact assessment is different from what she's asking.
Okay. I thought as she was saying about his the part of saying
No, it's not.
It's like she wants you to she wants you to expatiate more about the differences if they are the same. That
I said environmental monitoring and environmental assessment. They are the same thing. They are the same thing. But then if you are talking about environmental impact assessment, well, there might be a slight difference.
Hello? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Because actually, impact assessment is looking at the effect the impact of a project or an activity on the environment, which most at times may be negative, okay? The impact, the effect that a human activity or a particular project has on the environment. That is an impact assessment, which is a subset of environmental assessment or environmental monitoring. Because environmental monitoring may not be necessarily as a result of an ongoing project. It could be as a result of a natural disaster. Are you following?
Yeah, it is clear.
Or just out of curiosity, you want to check the environment and how the environment is. That is environmental monitoring or environmental assessment. But when you are looking at environmental impact assessment, we are looking at the impact of an existing project or a project that is going to be established, the impact it may have on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
I want to end today's lecture here. So when we meet again next week, we will look at another aspect of environmental monitoring. But today we just had a general overview of environmental monitoring. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Good night.
Thank you so much, sir. Good night. Good night to everyone. Have a nice night.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.